We begin today the Gemara on Daf Tzadik Beis Amud Beis, the last few words on the Amud, Amud Rav Yechanan. The Gemara here began discussing the story about Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, that was in the time of Nebuchadnezzar after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, and the Yidden were brought down to Bavel. So then Nebuchadnezzar placed a big tzelem for the Yidden to bow to, and Hananiah, Mishael, the Yidden did bow, and Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah did not. And because of this, he threw them into a kifshan ha'esh, to a furnace of fire, and they were saved. They were not burnt. So here the Gemara is going to go through a lot of details about them and about the story. Amar Rav Yechanan said, Gedolim tzadikim yosem imalachi yasharis. Tzadikim are higher and greater than malachim. Shenema, because here in the pasuk, when it speaks about Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah that were in the fire, so it says there in the pasuk what Nebuchadnezzar that was witnessing what happened there. When they got saved, what Nebuchadnezzar said. Now he said, Onei v'omar. He answered and he said, I see 4 men, the Sharayan that are untied, Mahalchim b'goy nura that are walking here in the fire. There's no rope that ties them. V'ravi the rivia dama lebar aloin. And the one that there's a 4th person amongst them that looks like an angel. So what do we see here in the lashon of the pasuk? That Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are thrown into the fire, but there was a malach that came with them. The malach is the one that came to save them. And Nebuchadnezzar is saying the malach that comes is the 4th. He's number 4 amongst them that comes to save them. So from the way the pasuk is expressing this, you see that Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are first, and afterwards the malach is number 4. So from this we see that tzaddikim are greater than malachi asharis. This is a concept which is explained in Chassidus in many places, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, and one of the places in the Igeres HaTshuva Perik Dalet, where the Alter Rebbe explains what the neshama of a Yid is and what a tzaddik is. Chelek Havaya Amai, the connection of a Yid to the Eibishter surpasses the mitzias of malachim. The malachim, as high and as spiritual as they are, their sheidish comes from dibur. But a tzaddik, a Yid, Bechlal, comes from machshava. And so a tzaddik is on a much higher level than a malach.
We care about what Nebuchadnezzar.
Well, true, and that's not the point. You're right. It's not about what Nebuchadnezzar said, but it's the way the pasuk records what he said, and the pasuk is bringing it in this eifin, so that tells us that there's a point about this. That's why it's mentioning it. Rab Tanchum bar Chaniloi said about what happened then. When they came out of the fire and they were saved. So all the nations of the world came, and they hit the Yidden. It's saying Saneim Shal Yisrael as a euphemism, but it refers to Yidden, and they hit the Yidden on their head. And Amar Lahem, they said to the other Yidden that were there, and they did bow down to the Tzelem, Yesh Lachem Lekakazeh, you have a God like this, that this is such a miracle, that He saves their life from being burnt in this fire. Atem Shtachvim L'Tzelem, and you bow down to the Tzelem. Miyad Pascha V'Amru, immediately the Yidden said, Hashem is righteous, and we are embarrassed on this day that we see what happened there. Another thing that's connected to this story of Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Rab Shmuel Nachmeni said, in the name of Rab Yenison, what is the meaning of the pasuk where it says in Shir HaShirim, Amarti el betomar? Hashem says, I said, I'll go up on a palm tree. This is a mashal for Yidden, as we'll see. And Oichza b'sansano. And then the pasuk says, I'll hold on to its branches. What is the pasuk saying? Amarti, Hashem says, I said, Ele b'tomar Ele Yisrael, that I will go up on the palm tree, meaning I'll be elevated by all Yidden that are a palm tree. But for Achshav, now I see, Loi ola b'yadi ele sansan echad, that I only have one branch to rely on. And that is the branch of Shal Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, because the rest of the Yidden then did bow down to the Tzelem. It's only Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah that did not. Rabbi Yechanan said, "My dechsev." What's the meaning of this pasuk? And as the Gemara here will darshan, that this pasuk is also related to the story of Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. This is a nevuah in Zechariah where it says, "Re'isi alayla." He says he saw a vision, he saw night, and then he saw v'hine ish reichav asus adam, a man riding on a red horse, v'oimed ben hadasim asher b'metzula, and he's standing between the hadasim that are in a metzula, in a valley. Now, Ma'ira Isi Alayla, what does this vision mean? What's the night that he saw? Bikesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu lafech kol ha'olam kulei l'layla. The Eibishter wanted to turn the entire world into darkness. This is after that story that he didn't bow down to the Tzelem that Nebuchadnezzar put up. And this actually is also brought the Gemara in Megillah, when it talks about the Gzeira of Purim, in one opinion, the reason for the whole Gzeira of Haman, of Purim, that the Eibishter wanted to wipe out Rahman al-Tzan Klal Yisrael, this is what it means here. Laila is because of Hishtachvul Tzelem, when you didn't bow down to the Tzelem by Nebuchadnezzar. And then he saw V'hine Ish Reichiv, a man riding. What is this vision of a man riding? Ein Ish Ela Kadosh Baruch Hu. It goes on the Eibishter, Shenem, as the Pasuk says, Hashem Ish Mochama, Hashem Shemai. So it uses here the term Ish, going on the Eibishter that fights wars. Al Sus Adem, Hashem was riding on a red horse. What's the significance of this redness? Bikish HaKadosh Baruch Hu, La'afeiches Ha'olam Kulei L'dam. Hashem wanted to turn the whole world into red, into blood. But then, what saved the world? Ki v'shenistakel v'Chananya Mishal v'Azariah. The Eibishter saw Chananya Mishal and Azariah that had Mesiris Nefesh and Skarer Adaitai. So this calmed him down. Shenem, and the pasuk goes on to say, "V'hu oimed bein ha'adasim asher b'Metzula." He's standing between the hadasim that are there in the Metzula. The ein hadasim el tzadikim. The hadasim is a mashal for tzadikim. Shenem, as it says, "Vayihi oimen as ha'adasa," and he raised Hadassah, which is the lashon that the pasuk says regarding Esther, that he raised her. So we see that the term Hadassah and Hadassim refers to tzadikis or tzadikim. And they Metzula el Bavel. Where do you see the tzadikim, which refers to Hanani, Mishal, and Azariah? They were then in Bavel. So Metzula refers to Bavel. Shanema ha'imel Metzula charvi. You should dry up. V'narisayich oivish, and the rivers will dry. And that's a pasuk that says on Bavel. Miyad, immediately, what happened is Mileim Roigez Nasa Shrukim Va'adumim Nasim Shrukim Va'adumim Nasa Levanim. What was filled with anger, which was the expression of the red and the bright red horses that he saw in his nevuah, they turned into white, which means that this was the kapara that the Eibishter changed his mind, that he's not going to bring darkness to the world. Amar Rav Papa, so based on what it says here, Rav Papa said, Shmami, now from here we learn, Susya Chivra, Maila Lechalma. If a person sees white horses in his dream, it's a good sign, as opposed to the red horses that he saw here, which is a bad sign. When one sees white, that's good. And now the Gemara continues the story of what happened with Hananya, Mishal, and Azariah after they were saved from this furnace. Where did they go? What happened to them? It says the Gemara V'Rabbanon Lehecha Ozlu. The Rabbanon, which refers to the three great people, Hananya, Mishal, and Azariah, where did they go? Now, what's the Gemara's question? So Rashi says the reason the Gemara is asking this question is because after this, Hananya, Mishal, and Azariah are not mentioned anymore in Tanakh, in the Psukim. So it's not clear what ended up happening with them. Why aren't they mentioned afterwards? So there's a few opinions about this. Amar Rav says, Ba'ayin Hara Mesu. They actually passed away with an Ayin Hara. Wherever they went, everyone looked at them. So, these are the people that were saved from the fire, and there was a bad eye with jealousy that people looked at them, and that caused them to die. Marsha actually brings over here that Rav is the one that said in another place that from every 100 people that die, 90% of them die from an Ayin Hara. So Rav is the one that said this, that Ayin Hara has a very strong kayach, and therefore Rav says similar here regarding Hanani, Mishal, and Azariah. Shmuel says, Beroik Tavo. They drowned in the spittle. What spittle did they drown in? Going back to what the Gemara mentioned before, that after Hanai, Mishal, and Azariah was saved, all the Goyim came and hit the Yidden and screamed at the Yidden, and you bow down to Avodah Zarah when you see you have such a God, and they spit at the Yidden, and in this spittle, Hanani, Mishal, and Azariah drowned. It doesn't mean, obviously, in the literal sense, but it means as a mashal for this Indian that they lost their life because of what happened there. So according to both of these opinions, Hanai, Mishal, and Azariah had a tragic ending. But Rabbi Yochanan says, Alul Eretz Yisrael, they ended up going up to Eretz Yisrael, v'nasu nashim, they got married, v'yilidu banim ubanis, and they had sons and daughters. And the Gemara brings that Tanaim argued about this. Tanai, Rabbi Eliezer says, Ba'in hara meso. Rabbi Yeshua, Ime beroik tovu. And the Chachamim Ma'ibrim, Alul Eretz Yisrael, v'nasu nashim, v'yilidu banim ubanis. And he brings the source for this. Shenema, it says in the pasuk, Shmana, that is Yeshua Kohen Gadol. Yeshua Kohen Gadol at that time, you should hear Ata v'reiacha hayeshun lufanecha. You and your friends that are sitting in front of you. Ki anshe meifis heima. They are men of a miracle. So who's it talking about? That the people that are sitting in front of him are anshe meifis. Eze heima noshim shenasla meifis. Who are these anshe meifis that the pasuk is speaking about? This is Hanani, Mishal, and Azariah that are men of a miracle because they were saved from the fire. Okay, now the Gemara asks, Hananya, Mishal, and Azariah were there at that time, and they did not bow down to the Tzelem, and they were saved from the fire. But the question is, Daniel that was with the Yidden at that time, but he wasn't there. He obviously was not together with Yidden when this whole story with the Tzelem happened. Had he been there, he wouldn't bow down to the Tzelem either, and he also would have been saved. But we find that Daniel is not part of the whole story. So where was Daniel at this time? So there's different opinions about this, and as the Gemara is going to explain here, that Nebuchadnezzar made sure that Daniel should not be around when he put up this big Tzelem. And the Gemara will explain why he didn't want him to be around, but here first the Gemara says where Nebuchadnezzar sent him to, and he sent him on a mission that he should be far away for a while, so he shouldn't be around. So one opinion is, Amarav Lemichra Nara. Nebuchadnezzar sent him to make a river in a faraway place. And that's Betveria, actually, sorry, the Gemara here says, Nara Rabbah, to dig a big river in Tveria. It's, or others say, there's another gear say that to dig in a mountain. Shmuel said, La suya bizra da aspasta. He sent them far away to bring the seeds for aspasta. Rabbi Yechanan says, La suya chaziri da Alexandria shel Mitzrayim. He sent them to bring the swine from Alexandria and Mitzrayim, that they had very good quality, and he sent them there to bring this. The point, according to all these opinions, was that he sent him to a faraway place, that he shouldn't be around when all this is happening. But on the last opinion, the Gemara asks, what Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah, and this is in a Mishnah where it speaks about the things that make an animal a treifa, that it can't live for 12 months. And one of the things the Mishnah talks about is, what happens if you remove the womb from an animal? Could it live or not? And the Gemara there says that it can't, but then it brings from Tudus Areife. We had this before. Tudus Areife, Dr. Tudus, he said, Omar, Ein part of a chazir yotzim Alexander shel Mitzrayim. That in Mitzrayim, they had the best cows and the best swine. And they didn't want that anywhere else in the world they should have this available. So everyone should have to come to Mitzrayim to get this from them. So what did they do? They didn't allow any part of a chazir to go out of Mitzrayim. She'en chaytcha me'im shelo. They didn't cut out the womb. And it would be able to survive without the womb. So that's why he says that it's not a treifa. But b'shul shel it shouldn't give birth anywhere else. So they should have the monopoly over this market of the para and the chazira. Okay, so the question is, how can we say here that Nebuchadnezzar sent Daniel, that is, to go and bring the chazerim from Mitzrayim? So the Gemara answers, Zutri Aisi b'loy datayu. He sent them and he brought small chazerim that they didn't realize that he was taking out of Mitzrayim, that they didn't realize that he's doing it for this purpose. That's why he was able to do this. Okay, but now here, the Gemara brings the source of this inyan. Why did Nebuchadnezzar send away Daniel? Why didn't he want him to be around at this time? He didn't send away Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, but specifically Daniel, he sent away. So the Gemara actually says, Tanir Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa, Shloisha hoye boisa eitze. There were three that had the same plan, that Daniel should not be there at this time. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Daniel, and Nebuchadnezzar. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar, the Eibusha said, Nezel Daniel mehacha. Daniel should not be around at this time. Because then, if it would be for Daniel, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, then everyone would say Daniel was greater than Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah. They would say, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah were only saved in the merit of Daniel. So in order that they should be saved in their own merit, and everyone should see this clearly, so Hashem didn't want Daniel to be there. Now Daniel himself said, Ezel Mahacha, he wanted to leave, he didn't want to be there with Nebuchadnezzar, because he said, that it shouldn't be fulfilled in me that an Avodah Zarah will be thrown and be burnt in the fire. What does this mean? Because, as the Gemara is going to explain here in the continuation, Nebuchadnezzar treated Daniel himself like an Avodah Zarah. He bowed down to Daniel himself like an Avodah Zarah. So therefore, Daniel did not want to be around when he saw that Nebuchadnezzar is making a big Avodah Zarah. That even if he won't bow down to this, and then Nebuchadnezzar will throw him into the fire, his life won't be saved. Because since Nebuchadnezzar is turning him into an Avodah Zarah, Daniel himself that is, so maybe he won't have the merit to be saved. That's why he didn't want to be there. And Nebuchadnezzar himself also said, Yezel Daniel mehocha, Daniel should leave from here. That people shouldn't say, look, Nebuchadnezzar is throwing his own Avodah Zarah into fire. Because Nebuchadnezzar himself bows down to Daniel and treats him like an Avodah Zarah. And then, when Daniel will not bow down to the Tzelem, he's going to throw Daniel himself into an Avodah Zarah. It's not going to look good. So from where do we see that Nebuchadnezzar treated Daniel like an Avodah Zarah, that he bowed down to him? The Pasuk says, Bedayin, Malkan Nebuchadnezzar, Nafal al-Ampoi, that then at that time Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, Ul Daniel Saged and he bowed down to Daniel. And that's why this was the plan of Hashem, Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, that Daniel should not be around at that time.
Why talking?
Huh?
Why talking about that?
He treated him like an Avodah Zarah. He understood his greatness. Yeah. Now the Gemara goes on to say regarding that time period that there were others that were also thrown into the fire, but they did not get saved. So the Gemara here says like this. The pasuk says, "Koyama Hashem tzvois elokei Yisrael el Achav ben Kulia." Hashem says to Achav and vel Tzidkiya ben Maasiyah, Haneviim lechem b'shmi lashekev v'gaime, that are saying false prophecy in my name. Uksiv, and the Eibusha says about them, "V'lukich mehem klala l'chol golus Yehuda asher b'bava leima yisimcha Hashem kitzidkiyo v'ka'achav." That this is a curse for the Yidden at that time that are in Bavel, that they will be like Tzidkiyo and Achav. What was their curse? Asher kolam melech Bavel beish, that Melech Bavel, Nebuchadnezzar, singed them in the fire. So the Gemara says, okay, so we see that they were burnt in the fire, but it doesn't say Asher srafim leinema. It doesn't use the usual term that they were burnt in fire. Ela Asher kolam, they were singed in the fire. Why does he use this term? Amar Rabbi Yechanan, and Rabbi Yechanan says, what he did with them is Nebuchadnezzar singed them like when you take the kernels of wheat and you singe them. That's how they're made in order to eat them. So this is what happened with Achav and Tzidkiyahu. So here now the Gemara is going to bring the story of what happened to them. They were actually ended up getting burnt in the fire, but they weren't burnt completely. He took them out of the fire, he singed them. So the story is as follows. Because they did a despicable act amongst Yidden, vayinafu es neshei re'eyem. They were looking to have a relation with the wife of their friend. Mayovet. What is it that they did? Also, legabe brate de Nebuchadnezzar. They did a very stupid thing. They started up with who? With the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar himself. They went to the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Achav amalo. Achav says to the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, Koyamar Hashem. This is what Hashem says, Hashmi el Tzidkiya, that you should be available, you should go and have a relation with Tzidkiya. And Tzidkiya says to the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, Koyam Hashem Hashmi el Achav, that Hashem spoke to me that you should be available, you should go have a relation with Achav. So Azla v'amra le'lavua, she went and repeated to her father what Tzidkiya and Achav told her in the name of Hashem. So Nebuchadnezzar says to his daughter, this is all a lie. Elikeim shel elu seine zimahu. The God of the Yidden hates this kind of immoral relationships. Ki aseh legabach, when they come again to you, shadrinu legaboy. Bring them, send them to me, and I'll take care of them. Ki aseh legabah, so Tzidkiya and Achav came again to the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, shadrisinu legab yavua. He sent them to her father. Amalahu, so Nebuchadnezzar says to them, Man amalochain, who said this to you, that you should do this to my daughter? Amru, they said to him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eibusha said this to us. So Nebuchadnezzar said, you're lying, because Hananya, Mishael, Azariah, Shal Tinu, Chanai, Mishael, Azariah, I asked them about this, if this is possible. V'amru li, and they said to me, Asr, that this is forbidden. So this can't be that Hashem says this to you. Amrulei, so they said to Nebuchadnezzar, we're also prophets like them, like Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah. L'didhu lo yamar. To them, Hashem did not say this, but L'didon Amarlon. Again, L'didu lo yamar, he didn't say anything to them, but L'didon Amarlon, to us he did say this. Amalahu. So Nebuchadnezzar says to them, okay, you know what? If you are arguing that this is what happened, so let's test this out. Ana be'inad ev de kincho. I want to check you out and see if this is true. And I'll do this how? Just like what I did with Chanai, Mishael, and Azariah, that he threw them into the kifshan, into the furnace. Amrulei, so they got afraid and they said, no, you can't check us out because we're not the same like them. Why? Because inun tlasahavo. They were three individuals and the merit of all three together, they got saved. But vanan trein, we're only two. So we're not going to, even if what we're saying is true, but we're not going to be saved if we're only two. Amalahus, and Nebuchadnezzar says, okay, no problem. So you choose a third to be together with you, whoever you wish, and let's see what happens. So Amru, they said, Yeshua Kohen Gadol. Let's bring Yeshua Kohen Gadol. He is the third individual that we want. They should be together with us. And then, let's see what happens. So Savri, what they thought is, let's see Yeshua, the Nafesh Zuchusei. Let's bring Yeshua, that he has a lot of Schusim. Umagna Alon, and he's going to save us as well. Sachsiyuhu, they brought down Yeshua from Eretz Yisrael. They brought him down to be there together with them, to be thrown in the fire, together with Tzidkiyahu and Achav. What happened is Shadinu. They were thrown into the fire. Ino iklu. they got singed from the fire. And then, from what it's mashma here in the Gemara, after they were singed from the fire and they died, so Nebuchadnezzar took them out of the fire. But so that's why it says before this term of ikla that he was testing to see if they would get burnt, and they got singed and they died, and then he took them out of the fire. But Yeshua Kohen Gadol ichruchi money, his garments got a little bit burnt from the fire. But Shanem, as the pasuk says, Vayereni, but he didn't get burnt though. He survived. Now, the pasuk says, Vayereni is Yeshua Kohen Gadol oimid lefnei Malach Hashem v'gaimer, that Yeshua Kohen Gadol stands in front of the Malach Hashem, and the pasuk says, Ksiv Vayem Hashem el Satan Yiger Hashem b'chav v'gaimer, that Hashem screams at the Satan, and the pasuk goes on to say that Halezeh ud mutzel me'esh, that he's like a log that was saved out of the fire, that only got singed but did not get burnt. Just a little bit of fire was affected but didn't get burnt. Okay, so this is what happened. This is how they did die, and Yeshua survived. So now after Yeshua survived this, Amalei, Nebuchadnezzar says to him, Yedaina de tzadikat. I see that you're a tzaddik. The fire didn't affect you. But I want to know, Elamai taima hanya bach porte nura. Why is it that the fire did burn a little bit of your garments? And not like by Chananya. Chananya Mishov Azariah lo Yahanya bu klal. By Chananya Mishov Azariah, when they were thrown into the fire did not affect them at all. What's the difference? So Amalei, so he answered, Inu tlasahavo. They are three together. So they had a greater schos. Vanochad, I'm just one individual. That's why I didn't have their schos. But Amalei Nebuchadnezzar says, but v'ho Avram yochid have. Avram was thrown into the kivshana eish alone, and the fire did not affect them at all. So he answered, but Hasam Nehav Rishayim Bahadei. When Avram was thrown himself into the fire, there was no other Rishayim together with him. And therefore there was no permission granted to the fire to have any effect at all. There was other Rishayim with me. And therefore there is permission granted to the fire to have its effect, and therefore it had some effect on me as well. And he said, this is what people say, if you have two dry logs that are there and there's one moist one, so if the one that's moist, the fire will not catch onto it, but if you have another two dry ones there, so the ones that are dry will cause that even the moist one will also have an effect from the fire. That's the answer that Yeshua Kohen Gadol explained to Nebuchadnezzar. But the Gemara says that this was not the real reason. There must have been something else. He was just being deiche him to explain this, but that wasn't the real reason. My time Yanesh. What was talking the reason that there was some einish here, that although he survived, a great miracle happened to him, but yet there was some einish that his clothing was singed a little bit. Rav Papa said, because his children were marrying women that are not appropriate to marry a kayin, and he didn't protest about this. Shanem, as the pasuk says, that Yeshua Yelavish begodim tzayim, that Yeshua was wearing dirty clothing. Yeshua Lulbash begodim tzayim, Yeshua is wearing dirty clothing. Elamalamed, what it refers to is Shahayu ban of noisim nashim shein agunas lakohona. His children were marrying women that are not appropriate for a kayin v'leimichaben, and didn't protest, and that's why he had a little bit of this einish here while the great miracle happened to him. But this einish was as well. Okay, continuing now with another drasha that's related to Hanani, Mishael, v'Azariah. Rav Tanchum said, Darash bar kapara b'tzipairi. Bar kapara darshan in tzipairi, mai d'chsiv. What's the meaning of the pasuk where it says in Ros that sheish ha'sa'orim ha'ele nasan li, that Boaz gave Ros 6 barley corns. That's what it sounds like. Just gave her 6 barleys. My sheish ha'sa'orim. What are these 6 barleys that he gave her? Ilay m'sheish ha'sa'orim mamish. Does it literally mean that he gave her 6 barleys? V'chidarkei shel Boaz litam matana sheish ha'sa'orim. Does that make sense that he's just giving her such a meager gift? He's giving her just 6 barleys. Rashi here brings from what it says in the Mishnah in Peah regarding what you're supposed to give for the poor people. It's much more than that. It's a chatzikav, but not 6 barley. Ella. So what the pasuk is saying here is sheish sa'in. He must have given 6 sa'ah. And Rashi here says that this is the derech, that when you come to the gaida, the place in the threshing floor, so you come with a basket that's the size of a sa'ah. So if it says he gave 6, he probably gave 6 sa'ah. But that's a large amount. Is it customary for a woman to carry with her so much, the amount of 6 sa'ah? So the question here is, what is the meaning of this pasuk that Boaz gave her 6 sa'adim? Ella, rather, this is a remez. He gave her six barley corns, but it's a remez. Remez, Ramaz law, he hinted to her, Sha'asidin, Shisha, Banim Lotzis Mimena, that she will have 6 descendants that will come from her, Shemizbarchim B'Sheish Sheish Brachas. And each one of them will have 6 brachas on them. And Ve'eluhain, these are the 6 descendants, David, Mashiach, and Daniel, and Hananiah, Mishael, Va'azariah, that are all her descendants. They all come from David, that is her great-grandson. Now, David, where do we see that David was blessed with 6 blessings? The Chsiv, the Pasuk says, Vayan echad menan na'arim, one of the young lads that was in front of Shaul Melech, answered, and he said, Vayomer, and this, as we'll see, the Gemara is going to say that this is Doyag, that he said that there are 6 great things about David HaMelech, that Isi ben Yishai, I see a son to Yishai, which is David ben Yishai. Beis Alachmi comes from Beis Lechem. Yedeya Nagin, he knows how to sing. The Gibor Chayil, he's a strong warrior, or a strong man. The Ish Muhammad, and a man of war, another Maila. And the Ish Novain, a man with understanding. The Novin Dover, that it goes together. Sorry, the Novin Dover, the man of understanding. The Ish Toya, and a man of stature. And Vashem Mimoi v'gomer, and Hashem is with him. So these are 6 different brachas or milas that it says here about David HaMelech. Now, what does all this mean? Rav Yudah Marav said about this, Kol ha'pasuk hazeh amrei doyag ela b'lashon hara. Doyag said this in front of Shaul HaMelech. He didn't have good intentions. He was saying this in front of Shaul in order that Shaul should become jealous of David, to create a fight between them. Now, when he said Yedeya Nagin, what does this mean? Sheyedeya lishoel, that he knows how to ask properly questions in Torah. That's what it's referring to. When it says Gibor, what does it mean that he was mighty? Sheyedeya lahashiv. He also knows how to answer the questions that he asks. When it says Ish Mulchama, he's a man of war, it means Sheyedeya lisa v'litin b'mulchamta shel Torah. He knows how to debate and discuss matters in Torah. And when it says Ish Tayar Shemara Panim B'Halacha, that he could explain and bring proofs for things that he says in Halacha. And V'Novin Davar means Shemevin Davar Mitoich Davar, that from one subject he has the understanding to extrapolate another idea as well. And when it says Vashem Imoy, it means Sha'alacha Kamoisai B'Chol Makim, that the Halacha is always like him in every place. These are the milas that Doyeg said about David HaMelech. Now, regarding all of these, what did Shaul say about this? He said, Yohainisan b'ni kamayu. My son Yohainisan is just like David HaMelech. But Kivin Da'amalei Vashem Mimai, when he concluded and said that the Eibush is with him, that he's zeicha, that the halacha is always like him. Now this was a milsa, this was something that even Shaul himself did not have this fulfilled regarding his learning of Torah. Cholish daite, that's when he felt bad, and he had a jealousy on David. The Bishal Ksiv, because by Shaul we see the pasuk says, wherever he turns, he would be wicked, which is hinting to this that the halacha was never paskin like him. But by David it says, that wherever he turned, he was matzliach. His success was in his learning that the halacha was like him. Now, the pasuk before said, who was speaking in front of Shaul? It said, Echad Mana Adam, one of the young lads. It doesn't say who he was. The Gemara before said it was Doyag, one of the advisors of Shaul. Now, Minol and the Doyag have it. How do you know this was Doyag? Because Ksiv Vacha, here the pasuk says, Vayan Echad Mana Adam, one of the young lads said. Now, when it says Echad, it means Miyuchad Shebna Adam, the one that was unique amongst all of the lads. Uksiv Hassam, and he was the unique person, because it says in another place, V'sham Ishma Avdei Shal B'Yemahu Netzal Lefnei Hashem U'Shmoi Doyaga Doimi Abir Harayim, the greatest from all the shepherds, Asher LaShal, that Shaul had. So it says there that he was Abir Harayim, the greatest, and therefore here the Echad, the Miyuchad of the lads is Doyag. So this was all brought, why? To explain who are the 6 descendants of Rus that had 6 blessings. So the first one was David. Now the second one is Mashiach. Even though Mashiach is much later, but he's brought second over here. Mashiach, the Chsiv, the pasuk says about Mashiach, V'nocha olav, that it will rest upon him, Ruach Hashem, Ruach Chachma, Ubina, Ruach Eitza, Gvura, Ruach Das, V'yiras Hashem. See, these are 6 different spirits of Hashem that will rest upon Mashiach, which is expressing the 6 brachas that there was, that Boaz was hinting to. Now, Uksiv, the pasuk, the Gemara here now darshans another thing about Mashiach, because it says it later there in the pasuk. It also says V'harichai v'yiras Hashem, that he will have the reyach of Yiras Hashem. What does this expression of harichai b'Yiras Hashem mean? So Amar Rabbi Alexandri says, Melamed, what this means is she'etinoi mitzvahs v'yisurim kerechayim, that he'll be loaded and full of mitzvahs, but also full of pain and suffering, like a mill that you fill the mill with the kernels that go inside of it. So the term v'harichai here means like a rechayim, like a mill. It's one pshat. Rav Amar, another pshat, Rav says that when it says v'haricha b'yiras avaya, what it means is the meireyach v'doin. He'll have the sense of smell. He'll be able to judge by his sense of smell. The chsev, as the pasuk says there, v'loy l'mara ein of yishpait, he will not judge by what he sees with his eyes. V'shafat b'tzedek dalim, he will judge in justice those that are poor. V'chiach b'misha la'anvei aretz, and he will rebuke on a straight path those that are the ones in the poor in the land. So this is the sign. One of the things about Mashiach, that he's mereach v'doin, that he has the sense of smell. And here the Gemara is going to bring the story about this. Huh? Yeah, we learned about this. I'll say over the soon Devar that it says about this. So Bar Kaziba, the story about Bar Kaziba was about 50 years after the Churban of the second Beis HaMikdash, in the times of the Tanoim, Rabbi Akiva, and other great Tanoim. So Malach Tartan Shninu Palga. So he was a king for 2.5 years. He mounted a rebellion against the Romans that were ruling then in Eretz Yisrael, and for 2.5 years he was a king. Amalul Rabbanan, and then he said to the Rabbanan after his success, Ano Mashiach, I am Mashiach. Amrulei, so they said to him, but Mashiach Ksiv, regarding Mashiach it says, the Meirech V'Dain, that Mashiach could smell and judge. Let's see if he can smell and judge. When they saw that he could not smell and judge, katluhu, so they killed him. Now in other places it says that they did not kill him, but then they stayed away from him. They did not give him the support that he needed, and then that allowed the Romans to come and kill him. So this point that it says here about Merech V'Dain is brought in Chassidus, and it explains what's this concept of Merech V'Dain. There's a maimer from the Rebbe, Achron Shel Pesach Tavshin Yud Aleph, and in other places that the sense of smell is a very powerful thing. It's a koyach makif. This is what a person eats, you take in b'pnimius. Smell is something that's makif. It doesn't enter in the person b'pnimius. It refers to a very high level of connection of the essence of the neshama that's able to sense the truth without any other ways of using chokhmah and seichel and so on. It's also brought in the Sikha from the Friedrich Rebbe and Lekutei Diburim. There he says the idea of judging with the sense of smell means that Mashiach will have the ability to judge not only by what he sees in front of him now, but he'll have the ability to smell and to snuff out the circumstances that are surrounding the situation of the person, that what he did. And he'll be able to smell what's the cause and what's behind it. That's how the Friedrich Rebbe explains this inyan. Now regarding what it says here, this is also the famous machlokes between the Rambam and the Ravid regarding Mashiach. The Rambam in Hilchos Malachim says that Mashiach does not have to make any miracles to prove that he's Mashiach. Al Yala, Al Alev, Al Adas, that he has to make Isis and Moifsim. And the Ravid argues in the Rambam, and he says, look here, the story of the Gemara that says that he has to be a Merech V'Dain, and when he wasn't, Katlu, they killed him. But the Rambam there says that Nerag Ba'avainis, that he was killed with Havedis, which means that even after the story of Merech V'Dain, and they saw that he could not smell, according to the Rambam's version of the story, they did not kill him. They eventually realized that he was not the tzaddik that he claimed to be, and they did not give him the support anymore, and then he was killed by the Romans. But it was because of his Avedis, but not because he himself was not Merech V'Dain. That's how the Rambam learns this Gemara. Huh?
Which Averas they lied?
Again?
Which Averas?
It doesn't say. The Rambam says Narek Ba'avainis. Okay, going on to what we mentioned before regarding the descendants of Rus. So we brought over here the two, David and Mashiach, but then there's another four, and that is Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. That's what the Gemara is bringing this in. It's connected to what we spoke about before. So these four individuals were also descendants of David HaMelech, or from Rus. The Chsiv Vuhu, it says about them also 6 brachas. Asher ein behem kol ma'im, they have nothing, no blemish, nothing wrong with them. And v'toivei mara, good looking, umaskilim b'chol chachmeh, and wise in all wisdoms, v'yodei das, and have knowledge, u'mevine mada, and understanding of mada. V'asher koyach behem lamoid be'echel HaMelech. Them sefer, they stand in the chamber of the king and to teach. Them sefer v'loshin kastem, to teach from the Sfarim and the loshin kastem, the language of the kastim. This is what it says about them in their greatness when they were there in Galus, in Babel, by Nebuchadnezzar. So it mentions here in the pasuk 6 things. These are the 6 brachas about them. Okay, so now, as you see here, according to this opinion, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are descendants of David HaMelech, descendants from Rus. Okay, now the Gemara teaches over the pasuk that it says, what does it mean, mum that is? What does it mean that it had no blemish? Even the smallest blemish, like when you have the poke of when you have to take out blood, even that they didn't have either. They didn't have. Now, what does it mean when the pasuk says they had the power to stand there in the chamber of the king? What kind of a koyach are we talking about? What this means is they had the ability to control themselves from any laughter or any conversation, or even from sleep. They were able to even hold back, even when they needed to relieve themselves. And they were able to stand there in front of Nebuchadnezzar, and they were afraid of the king, and they had that ability to control themselves standing in front of the king. That's what the pasuk is talking about. Okay, now the Gemara here brings actually that it said here about Daniel, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, that they were descendants from David HaMelech. There's an argument about this, because there's a pasuk that says, "Vayehi be'em ibnei Yehuda Daniel, Hanani, Mishael, Azariah." So Amar Rabbi Eliezer, or the other version over here is Amar Rabbi Lazar, Kulam ibnei Yehuda. They were all from the Shevet of Yehuda, so that fits with what we said before. But V'Rab Shmuel, V'Ranachmeni Yomar, Daniel ibnei Yehuda. Daniel does come from Shevet Yehuda and the descendant of David. But Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Mishar Shvatim. They were actually from other Shvatim, and therefore he disagrees with the drasha that we brought before about the 6 barley, that it includes Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Okay, now another drasha that it says about Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, it says, Mubanayach asher yatzu mimeich, from the children that come from you, asher tailed, that you will give birth to, Yikchu vehayu sarisim beheichel melech. They will be taken, and they will be sarisim in the house of the king. Okay, so now this is a pasuk that it says over here as a nevuah to, I think, Chizkiyahu Melech, if I remember correctly, and this is what Yishai is telling him about his descendants. Now, these sarisim that it says here is talking about Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and it's referring to them as sarisim, that they will be sarisim in the Heichal HaMelech, Heichal Melech Bavel. Now, my sarisim, what is this expression that they refer to as sarisim? Rav Ma'arav means sarisim mamish. Sarisim means one that is sterilized and they can't have any children. That Nebuchadnezzar sterilized them, they couldn't have any children. Rab Chanina says, no, it means in the positive. That they were such powerful and great tzaddikim, and they were saved them from the fire, that because of them, Avodah Zarah became Sadist. Avodah Zarah was twisted and was destroyed in their times. So the Gemara now will discuss both of these opinions. It's understood according to the opinion that says that they caused Avodah Zarah to be nullified in their days. With this we can understand what the pasuk also says there later, that there was no wound in them, because it's coming to say in the continuation of the pasuk their mila, the fact that they caused the nullification of Avodah Zarah, and therefore it says that they have no chabala, they have no wound. But if it's coming to say that they were literally sarisim, that they have no children, what does it mean that they had no wound, that they had no chabal in them? But here we see that they could not have any children. So that's a big problem that they had. So the Gemara explains, no, when it says this, it means chabala denuda. It means that the wound of any injury from the fire that they were thrown into, that did not affect them. But the Gemara asks with Vaksiv, there's already another pasuk where it says, V'reich nur lo yadas bohin, that there was the smell, the smoke of the fire did not affect them. So why does it have to say here separately, v'chavala yesiboin? So the Gemara, it's adding another detail. When they came out of the fire alive, the fire did not affect them at all. Not any wound, and not even any smell from the smoke either. Another question the Gemara asks on this argument about why they're called sarisim. It's understood the opinion that says that they nullified the Avodah Zarah. This is what the pasuk praises them. It says, the sarisim that keep my Shabbos, and then the pasuk goes on to praise them. So the reason why it's referring to them as sarisim is in the positive, because they nullified Avodah Zarah. But if sarisim means that they were sterile, so mishtoi kra b'gnusa de tzadike. The pasuk there is calling them tzadikim, and it's praising them, and it's using this derogatory term about them, calling them sarisim. Answers the Gemara, you're right, you can have to say according to this opinion, that the sarisim means both, that they were sterile, and they were also sarisim, that they were mevatla Avodah Zarah. And in this pasuk it's talking about the positive, that they nullified Avodah Zarah. Another question Gemara asks, Bishleim Lamandama Sarisim Mamish. According to the opinion, it says that it means literally that they were Sarisim. Haina Dechsiv. This is what the pasuk then goes on to say about them, that Bebesi B'chameisa Yad V'Shem Toiv Mibanim Mibanis. That Hashem says that I'll give you a good name, which will be better than having children. So according to this opinion, it's understood they couldn't have any children. So Hashem says that it'll have even better than this. But according to the other opinion, that they were not Sarisim, but rather it just means that they were Mevatel Avodah Zarah in their days. My Toiv Mibanim Mibanis. Why is it saying that they'll have better than children? They were able to have, and they had children. As the Gemara brought before, actually, in one opinion, Gemara brought before Rabbi Yechanan said that they went to Eretz Yisrael and they had children. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, what it means is, Mibanim shoyelehem kvar meso. Kvar umeso, they had children, but they died. That's why Hashem says they'll have a name. And what does it mean, the name? Ma Shem Olam Eton Lo Yishalei Yikaris. Rav Tanchum, what does it mean that they had a good name that will never be wiped out? So Rav Tanchum says, Darish bar kapara b'tzipairi ze Sefer Daniel shenikra shmai. This refers to Sefer Daniel that was called on his name of Daniel and not on the name of
There were three.
Again?
There were three.
Yeah, the other ones, yeah. Let me just make sure over here regarding what I'm talking about over here. The Sarisim, yeah, Chanayim Shov Azariah. Sefer Daniel that was called in his name. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay.